If you're a dentist running a practice, chances are you've been contacted and pitched by an SEO company probably more than once. You've likely heard it a dozen times before. They promise first page rankings, floods of new patients, and amazing results that, unfortunately, usually never quite materialize. But their monthly invoice sure does. The dirty secret of the dental SEO industry is that it's an industry full of people selling something that they know their clients can't easily verify. And now there's a new pitch making the rounds: AI search. It's changing everything, and you need to hire us to help you succeed, or your competitors are going to put you out of business. Sure, maybe that's true, or maybe it's just the latest way to scare dentists into paying for snake oil. The problem is most dentists have no way to tell the difference because they're busy being dentists. And that's exactly what makes today's guest so unusual. Dr. David Wank isn't an SEO guy who learned some dental terminology to close more clients. He's a Harvard-trained dentist who's built a thriving dental career. And then, while still seeing patients, built a successful digital marketing company servicing dentists and doctors all across the country. He's operated on both sides of the equation at the same time for years. He knows what it's like to sit in the owner's chair of a practice, worry about new patient flow, and getting pitched by marketing companies every day. And he also knows better than almost anyone what actually works and what doesn't when it comes to growing a dental practice. In today's interview, he's going to cut through the noise, explain how SEO really works, what's actually changed with AI search, and how to stop being an easy mark. You're both a dentist and a marketing professional, so that's very unique. And I wanted to get your thoughts on AI search, right? Because there's a wave of marketing companies that are, reaching out to dentists via email, via phone, saying, maybe you had SEO in the past, but now it's all about generative engine optimization, GEO, or I've heard it called answer engine optimization, right? And they're trying to convince dentists that you need a special set of strategies or services in order to rank on ChatGPT or Claude or something like that. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Do you think this is a legitimate service? Is it something that dentists should be investing in? Or is this kind of just the latest grift that's targeting the dental industry?
Well, I don't want to call it grift. I think that there is obviously there's value to being found anywhere you can. But I think what my colleagues and everyone needs to understand, no matter what industry you're in, is that ChatGPT, or the way AI works, Google and AI, if you look at it, are basically the same thing in the sense that they are answer engines. In that, forget about if you're looking for a pizza place. If you're looking for a pizza place, Google looks at your location. It's pretty straightforward. When you start asking for suggestions, I want a dentist, I want this, I want that, Google has some information. It's going to use that information to return you a search result or a map or reviews. And ChatGPT is doing the exact same thing, except it's presenting it to you in a different format. So it is not anything that's new per se. It's a new way of getting the same information. And so now the question becomes is, how does Google find information and how does ChatGPT find information? And the truth is that it's basically the same in the sense that whatever information is available publicly is the same information available to whether it's Google doing a search, whether it's AI doing a search, or whether someone's looking in old school yellow pages or walking up and down the street looking at names of businesses. So in that regard, it's the same. So there's no such thing as dedicated. It's something that I would say to build upon as part of the service. There isn't such thing as a separate, ChatGPT optimization, because the things that you would do for SEO, the foundational items that you have are what you would build on. So it's not something like, we don't have an extra bedroom in the house. So you're going to build an extra bedroom and that you're going to start from scratch with plans. It's more like, we want to add an extra lamp here. So we need to have a house with a structure in it first before we can do that. And so with what you want to do with AI is what you would do in any standard campaign. And that's going to be having website built to, notice none of this has changed. Website built to Google standards, which are pretty clear. And to have, it doesn't even necessarily have to be running an SEO campaign, because optimized for SEO only means that it's a website that loads quickly, that has proper title tags, all of the things. If you would do a Google search or an AI search for, what are the top 5 things I should have on my website for SEO? and it's going to be the same. It's going to be
Yeah.
fast loading. It's going to be content that applies to your business that's written by humans. It's going to be images with alt tags. It's going to be title descriptions. That's what it's going to say. And an SSL certificate, which is, now that's, and mobile friendly, but no sites I would hope now are built without being mobile friendly. So the last time Google made an earth shattering change, there were two of them. One was when they made us go SSL, maybe 10 years ago already. That's a little padlock you see like when you go to the bank. Why a dental website needs to have a padlock, if I'm just, looking to see if you do veneers, I don't know. And mobile friendly, which is with the advent of, obviously mobile devices, you've probably seen some websites once in a while where it like blows up on the mobile because it's not, but that's, that should
It's
not even have
rare.
to be. That's like going to the dentist and you're saying you're having a filling and they're not getting you numb. Like that should not be, right. It's assumed that this is not going to hurt. In terms of specific AI things that are things you should do anyway are your content. AI seems to be more about branding and about your overall brand, which is why you should own your website all the time. We could talk about that later. But your content should be clear and concise. And there's nothing wrong with someone writing content for you, but make sure whatever language you're writing it in, if it's an English speaking audience in the United States, it's got to be clear, concise English. The grammar's got to be good. And it can't run on like we would do 15 years ago and say, Dr. Wank is a dentist in Tribeca who loves doing dentistry in Tribeca because Tribeca is a great place to do dentistry for Dr. Wank in New York and Tribeca. That
All the
15
keyword
years ago,
stuffing that people, we still see that all
15
the
years ago,
time.
we did that. That was great. Now you see that, and that's Google knows that. Google's known that for a while. And other things like match the images. If you're talking about veneers on a page, don't have an image of something out of a dental lab or something that doesn't make any sense. Now, obviously, I wouldn't show a picture of someone's teeth with the cut veneers without the veneers on it. I wouldn't show your preps. That's scary. But I would certainly, put an image on there or even a stock image that has, related to the topic. The last thing that you would want to do is schema. And so schema is not very well understood, but it's easy to understand. Schema is just a way that we organize things. And when we chart teeth, we do, mesial, distal, occlusal, buccal, lingual. We are organizing where on this teeth. So we know when I have to do an MO on number 30, I know exactly what we're talking about. And so do you, and so do I. There's no question where that is. It's just a way of organizing instead of saying the front side of that tooth near the front on the bottom has some cavities. What schema does is it helps Google frame things. And the schema that you want, you can talk to your web developer about it. You should have local business schema to say that you're a dentist. And you should also have, if you're going to have facts or you're going to have frequently asked questions, which are pretty good to have, just to remind Google that those are facts. You're not going to not rank because you don't have that. But if you are building a site, much more important than worrying about the kind of golden button you have to find for AI is do what you're supposed to do and build it to Google standards. And that's, I think that covers most of it. Maybe,
For the large part, I think, like the fundamentals of SEO hasn't really changed with AI. Like you said, it's really just presenting the information in a different way. There are some slight nuances to, what it values, and you kind of touched upon it. So it really values social proof. It's looking at, not so much technical optimization as much as it's how popular are you? How well known are you? How well do people know you, right? Not that Google doesn't care about that. It cares about that tremendously, right? So I think people kind of go down the rabbit hole of thinking that you need these special codes in your website. And if you just like connect the wires correctly, all of a sudden you rank. And like you said, it's more about just having content that's useful. It's easy to read. It's written by a human. It's not over optimized, right? And it just your website's valuable to people. Like it answers questions. It's concise. It's informative. It's factual, right? It's not some of that content. There's a lot of dentists they never read it and they don't realize that what is being written there on their behalf is not medically accurate, right? So Google's going to catch those sort of things. And same with AI. And we didn't talk about the EEAT principle, but for dental websites or anything medical, financial, nutrition based, Google kind of puts a lot more scrutiny on the information you have there. No one's going to die if they buy the wrong pair of shoelaces, right? But if you get the wrong medical information, you take the wrong financial advice, that could cause major harm, right? So Google really scrutinizes your content. So you need to make sure that as a dentist, you don't have to write it, but you definitely should read it and make sure that it is accurate and it is correct. Or, there's a lot of little factors. And it kind of brings me to my next point is that for many dentists, SEO is this sort of black box, right? A lot of them seem to think it's all about just technical optimizations, right? In reality, there's like hundreds of factors that Google looks at and AI would look at. Can you break it down sort of in layman's terms, something, as a dentist, I mean, maybe, what would your colleagues understand? How would you explain how
Sure.
SEO really works?
What I would mention first, though, going back to question one, though, is that when you have content, and I see it all the time and I can't stand it, the content says, if you want to have a wider smile, your dentist will help you. And if I'm on your website and I'm a patient, I want to, if it's Dr. Wang's website, I want to see not your dentist will help you with whitening. Dr. Wang has been doing whitening for 20 years. And one of the things he loves to do is to whiten teeth, but we have to do your fillings first or whatnot. But when you have the dentist, it makes it so impersonal. And there are so few sites that actually say, one of the things that we do before we place an implant is Dr. Wank is going to meet with you. And then Dr. Wank is going to help you determine if an implant is appropriate here and the next steps will be. Not your dentist, the dentist. Because that to me says to me that you didn't take the time. And a lot of that reflects poorly on you as a dentist, only because you have to remember patients have no way of judging you. They can't read your x-rays. Now, I always love it when a patient says, "Can I see the film?" And I kind of laugh on the inside. Sure, you can look at the film, right? But they can't judge. They have no way to know if that crown fits or if it doesn't fit, other than does it hurt or does it not hurt? Does it look good or not look good? So now you may have the most beautiful margins in the whole world on your crowns and your veneers, gorgeous, no bleeding, gums are perfect. Patients, contacts are perfect. Patients don't appreciate that as much as we do as the professionals because they can't. They're not trained. So
They
what
have
can
no
they
clinical
do?
skills. Yeah.
So, and they shouldn't. So what can they use as other ways to judge you? They judge you by what your website looks like. Is that fair? No. Is it if your website is crappy, then you're a bad dentist? Of course not. And if your website is gorgeous, are you a good dentist? Of course not. But you have to say, how are we going to evaluate a provider when you don't have the clinical skill? If you go to get your car fixed, there is no way, unless you're a mechanic, there is no way to evaluate if they have to remove this part to put something under that part and put it back. There is no way for you as a layman, or for me, I don't do mechanics, to do that. So how else will I judge them? Well, based on their reviews, based on what other people say, based on their website. You go to a restaurant, you could taste the food, but before that, is it clean? Does it look nice? Are there, marks on the glasses? Or is the fork clean? And it might be a, 1 million star Michelin restaurant. But if you have like something on the fork that looks dirty, so,
People
and so
make emotional decisions. It's not fair,
yeah,
but it's just how we make decisions. We go with who
especially
we like and who we trust.
right. And we have to understand that patients are unable to evaluate us as providers. And
Yeah.
one of the things that we have to understand about SEO is that there are, as Nick said, hundreds of factors that rank in SEO. When we have an idea what they are, we don't know what the relative importance of them are. We know in a dental appointment, for example, what's important. Patient shows up in the chair on time. Patient gets numb. The injection isn't painful. The appointment is quick and the result is good. The patient's happy, out of pain, and it looks good. So if you take those as ranking factors for your appointment, you can certainly have an appointment where if you get the patient numb and it still hurts a little bit, you give them more local. That's probably not going to ruin your appointment. It's an important ranking factor. If after the restoration's done, it looks great, and they go in their car and they bite into something and the tooth breaks, that's a negative ranking factor. So in the sense that there are things that make up an experience. And it's not just like the patient was numb, comfortable the whole time, and we had great music. So therefore, this is ranking first as the dentist, as your appointment. So it doesn't work that way. Obviously, there are bigger factors than others, and they are, having these basic principles in place. But what I think people are losing track of is it's kind of the 80-20 rule. A lot of practices, or a lot of, my colleagues that are looking for, I want to rank for this, I want to rank for that. Well, before you can do that, you have to have the foundations in place. And then foundations require work on our part as a business owner. as not even as a dentist, but as an agency owner, I can tell you, I have to make sure the content on my agency website is good. That takes time. Now, certainly I can hire people to do that for me, but at the end of the day, I've got to at least read it to make sure it's my voice. There's only so much you can outsource. And that's the
Yeah.
problem. And a lot of what agencies will do is, yeah, there's ranking factors. And you don't need to hire me or Nick or anybody to look up those ranking factors. Assessing whether your website has those ranking factors, you could probably do that too. But people
Yeah, you
aren't
can
doing
just
it.
Google it or go on
Right. It's
ChatGPT
here.
and say,
So
like, in
here's
2026, what are the, local SEO ranking factors that a search engine would use to decide how to rank websites, right? And some things you can affect and some things are a little bit more complicated and technical, but a lot of them are easy to understand, right?
sure. It's proximity is number one. Primary category, number two. I think that's the current, reviews. And there are other things that get into it, but the point is that even just location and primary category. And we as dentists need to have our expectations in a certain place. That, first of all, if you were in the middle of nowhere and there's no dentist within 100 miles of you, you will rank. It's easy. If I wanted to rank for dentist in Tribeca who works across the street from a restaurant and likes to watch hockey and eat pizza, I could rank you first for that. That's easy. The problem is no one's searching for it. So what we have to understand as dentists is, number one, competition. No matter how good anybody is, there are 3 spots on top of maps. No matter how good anybody is, there are 10 spots, on that first page of Google. And there's sometimes we're an agency where it's not possible, and dentists don't want to hear that. Neither does any business. But there are times where something is not. If you're in New York City and there are 20 dentists in your building or 10 dentists on your floor, it's going to be very difficult to differentiate. That being said, you still have to do the basics in your office, right? You still have to have a chair, electricity, a drill. So even if there's competition, there's a baseline that you have to have. And so when it comes to these foundational principles, we should be worrying about that 80% of those principles that are important, not the 20, because most people are not looking at, does it really matter if you have a television set in your operatory? Does that affect the outcome of the filling, the restoration? No. Is it nice? Sure. But it doesn't matter, in that regard. So I think that.
So you're saying a lot of them will spend time and money sort of chasing things that, ultimately not really going to have that big of an impact?
Exactly. And I think that when it comes to an agency, we also have to understand that, yes, the agency, when you hire an agency, you are still the boss. The agency works for you, but you're the boss and not the agency. And I think that where a lot of disappointment comes in is where any business, a dentist, will call up an agency and say, get me these results, and then just sits back and says, I'm waiting. And doesn't realize that you're only going to it's like going to the gym. It's like working with a trainer. It's like practicing the piano. There's only so much a piano teacher can do. If you're not practicing, when they come next week, you're not going to have succeeded, and it's not the piano teacher's fault. So what I think that we do in marketing, and I think that that Nick does, and what you should look for is you want to make sure that you are tracking results and not rankings. And the results that you need to track for your practice are, again, everyone's going to have similar metrics, are how many new patients am I getting per month? That's one. And remember, success for your office, if you're doing all on 4s all day, maybe 5 new patients a month is a great number for you. But if you're not, if you have 5 associates and 12 chairs, 70 might be the number for you. So the number of new patients doesn't matter, in that it matters. There's no one size fits all. For same thing like cars. If you've got a family of 6, you're not going to fit them in a little Toyota Camry. You need some kind of van. And so there's nothing wrong with that either way. So 5 new patients or 70, it's what does the practice want? So number one, before you hire a company, what do you want? Because a lot of times we expect the marketing company to read our minds, say, just do this, just make this better, just make me bench press 200 pounds. But, do you have a shoulder
What are you
injury?
trying to achieve? Yeah.
Right. And so track the results, not the rankings, which are the number of new patients. And what you have to figure out as a dentist is, what can you afford to pay for a new patient? And that's really what's missing. Then whether you rank first or 50th for a keyword doesn't matter.
Exactly.
If I told you that, let's say you want to get a new patient for $100 per new patient because you bring in $1,500 a year per new, whatever your numbers are. If you know that I need to get a new patient at $100 a year, $100 per patient, and I can afford that and it's worth my practice. Now you can say to your agency, listen, almost, I don't care what you do or how you do it, but at the end of the month, at the end of the day, at the end of whatever period we have, when I run the numbers, I need to see that I average around $100 per new patient. And that's really what matters. It doesn't matter if I used SEO or Google Ads. And I mean, and yes, you could break it down further than that. But if you're at a point where you don't even know, and it's hard, it's not easy. I mean, it's easy to figure that out, but it takes time and effort. You've got to sit down for a day on the weekend or something and look it up and say, all right, in the last year, let me go look in Dentrix or whatnot and say, how much money did I generate per these new patients? And what was my marketing budget? And is that okay? Am I going broke spending this much per patient, or am I not?
And it's surprising how many don't know those numbers. Like
right.
Every
it requires effort.
Every marketing agency will send reports on, this is how many clicks you got, this is your bounce rate, this is your, impressions, like in metrics of that. And I ask all these dentists, okay, what does that mean? Like, how does that translate to butts in the chair for you? Is that actually moving your patient flow in the right direction? Is it filling up your schedule? And they sit there and they're like, yeah, I don't really know. It's all essentially you're paying money every month, right? And that money can be, it's valuable. It can be used to pay someone's groceries, rent, mortgage, etc. But what you're getting back is a report on clicks and likes and shares and like just nonsense, just vanity metrics, right? And I tell dentists all the time, is like, can you pay your staff with website clicks? Like it's not a currency. It doesn't mean anything, right? So when you ask them, what is it costing you to get a new patient? I don't care what you do. Maybe it's SEO, because every practice is different. Things will, depending on the level of competition, you might have an area where no one's doing SEO. It's quite easy. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You rank really easily, right? Other areas, I'm not a huge fan of flyers, but I will admit that there are areas where no one's doing them. And you'd be the only one in that mailbox, right? For whatever reason, people are just not investing into that. But when you ask each of them, it's like, okay, you're trying a million different things, right? SEO, you build a website, you do flyers, whatever you're doing. Most dentists do try a number of different things, right? And when you ask them, what's your acquisition cost? What does it cost to get a butt in the chair with these different activities that you're doing? I mean, in 10 years of working in this industry, no one's ever answered that question. No one's had like a proper answer. Sometimes they'll say like, they'll give some sort of answer and you ask them like, well, how did you calculate this number? And you realize like, well, they just kind of pulled it out of their butt, right? Like there's no thinking. So I agree with you. You need to figure out like, set the rules of the game, figure out what you're going to put on your scoreboard before you start working with somebody. How are you going to evaluate success? Is it, if you say, I want more patients, okay, what kind of patient? Because it's easy to get you a bunch of people in that aren't necessarily good patients for you, right? And then you'll complain, yeah, but they just came in for an emergency, or they're on Medicaid and I don't accept Medicaid. It's like, well, you never specified that, right? So define what you want. What does success look like for you? What kind of time frame are you looking for? And track that, because you're right. If you go down the rabbit hole of all the technical metrics, it's really confusing. Even for me, it's like, okay, what do these stats mean? Are these clicks even from this country? And then you go through Google Analytics and you find that half of the clicks are coming from Pakistan. It's like, well, do you have an office there? I'm kind of confused, right? So,
right. One of the ways I look at it is with levers. So part of it is when someone comes to us and says, I want more new patients, there are only certain numbers of levers you can throw. And it's like anything else, right? We got to fix the levers to see. And so what we like to do, and I'm sure other agencies do something similar, is a baseline analysis. And when you get a lot of companies will try and sell a baseline. Now, first of all, computers will generate a baseline, and that's good. There is nothing wrong with saying, look, you can go to any of these, websites online and generate, a website report. That's good. Because in the past, I did that by hand, right? So it's really nice to have a computer look up what I could look up. So the computer can do it, but it takes a human to analyze that. That being said, doing a free SEO audit, again, that's not something special. If someone wants to look at that and then go over it with you, there's nothing wrong with that. But
it's like getting that X-ray or getting, it's like, here's your stuff analysis.
Right, but not everything is as bad as, not everything that you see in an audit has to be fixed, or needs to be fixed, or can move the bar, which is why for us, we do more of an audit. that looks at how are you performing right now. What I'm looking at is, and you should look at it with any audit, right? Because your SEO audit, the number of clicks, the ranking for this keyword, all of that doesn't matter. It's how many new patients, that audit can't tell you how many new patients you got. So, but if we have an audit and you do call tracking and you look and say, okay, in the last 2 or 3 months, we had X number of phone calls from, and 50% of them came from Google, 25% came from our ads campaign, and 25% came from internal referrals. And we have, of those, 100 phone calls, 50 became new patients. All of a sudden now we have numbers. So at the end of 3 months or whatever time period you pick, we know that, wow, we had, Google sending us some traffic and we are getting phone calls and those patients are good. Because I know the patients' names because we did call tracking. And I'm looking in my management system to see we actually generated revenue from these guys. Whereas, the Google Ads people, they came in for an emergency appointment and we didn't really generate revenue from them. But now, because most practices are not doing this, if you know this already, terrific. Most practices don't come to me and say, I've got, it cost me $100 for a new patient. I'm getting 20 right now. I'd like to scale the budget to double that to 40. I think there's room for that. But that usually doesn't happen. But you can't possibly expect a marketing company to provide you with results if you don't know where you want to be and you don't know where you are. So it's that point you can say, right now, I know that we get 10 new patients a month from Google search over the last 3 months. And those patients come in at $100 a patient, and that's fine with me. Now that we know that, now let's move forward. What can we do? Our baseline is 10 a month at $100 a head. It's like having a very inexpensive wedding. So what can we do to now increase that number? But now we know where we're starting. And that means that you as the dentist, you're accountable. And me as the marketer, I'm accountable. And what dentists have to understand is that they're accountable also. And I know that, listen, I'm the best dentist in the whole world. Everything I do is perfect and everything is wonderful. And if a patient complains, it's because of them and not because of me. And everyone should come see me because I'm wonderful. And that's just not the case. And what we also have to shed some of that ego, that it's very possible that people are going to leave a 1-star review, even if you don't deserve it. But it's also possible that not everybody's going to love the picture of you on your website like this. And that's okay too. But what you have to know is you've got to know your marketing company is not driving the train so much as they're driving the train. They're not planning the route, right? You've got to plan that route. And then you can hire them to drive the train and to help you get there. I don't know what kind of engine I should do for this many cars, but that's where it has to be. But if you know now you're getting 10 patients a month from Google and it's costing you $100 a head, now I want to do 15 patients a month or 20 because that's what I have the capacity for. So how can we get there? And now we can measure. And then we say, well, let's look at that. And you can say, well, now we know how many new patients we're getting and how much it cost. Now we can go back and look at that organic traffic. Are you getting a lot of traffic? No. So we're not getting a lot of traffic, but you're still getting people to the site and you're getting phone calls. That's awesome. Let's increase the traffic lever because we know it works. But I don't want to close my eyes. And then if I don't know how many new patients you're getting, if it's working, I don't want to increase the new patient lever, the traffic lever, and spend more money. I don't know if it works.
Yeah, it's like you're in front of an airplane cockpit and you're just pushing buttons randomly to see what happens.
Exactly what
right?
we're doing. And if you control the lever, so yes, if you look at how much traffic I'm getting, let's say you get this SEO report and it says you had 80 visits last month from Google, and now that you've worked with us, you're getting 120 a month. That's great, except, well, how many of those 120 became new patients? How many of those 80 were new patients? How many of them, like Nick said, are from your area? So I don't want to say to you, wow, look at what we've done. We have increased the number of organic visitors from Google, and now we've done a great job. Well, yeah, if your agreement was, I would like you to increase traffic to my website from Google. Sure, they met the goal. If it's, I want to get new patients from Google, they haven't met the goal. So that's the wrong, let's just say it's the wrong number to look at. But if you know now that you're getting patients from traffic from Google and it's working and giving you the numbers that you want, yes, then let's run an SEO campaign. Or if you find that you're running a Google Ads campaign for $99 emergencies, and those are actually, and you're spending $2,000 a month, and those patients are actually becoming new patients because you're awesome, and you accept their insurance, and you're spending $2,000 a month, and it's meeting that $100 a head, then yeah, let's increase the spend. But when someone says, how much should I spend on Google Ads? I have no idea. Should I spend $3 grand or $2 grand or $1 grand or 10? Well, if I told you if you spend 10 grand in ads, you generate 100,000 in revenue, you'd probably spend the 10 grand. So again, it's not a question of how much you have to spend to be successful. It's a question of what does that number mean to you? Because it doesn't matter if it's $500 to get 10 patients or 5,000 to get new patients. It's what do the numbers on the other end look like? And that's what people are missing out with any agency. No agency can satisfy you if you don't have the numbers to look at. And you've also got to make sure that you have to say to the agency, what KPIs, what key performance indicators, what measurements are we going to use, and how are we going to do it? How are you, before we sign a contract, how are we going to agree that you as the agency are going to get me the new patients or to try, and me as how can I verify as the dentist that I'm getting, both ways? So something like call rail or call tracking is a company agnostic way for the agency to say to the dentist, well, you had 50 phone calls from Google. And the dentist has to tell the agency of those 50 calls, 20 of them became new patients. Because if the dentist says, I have no idea what happened in those 50 calls, how can you possibly expect the agency to know? Yeah, there's AI, there's recording, but no matter what happens, only you as the dentist can give them the feedback they need. Does it hurt? Is the patient gripping the chair with their fingers because it hurts? You can tell. The agency doesn't know what you're doing with your new patients or how much revenue you're getting unless you tell them. And if you're not telling them, they're in the dark, and it's unrealistic and unfair to expect an agency to try and know that if you're not telling them that.
Yeah, it was. You're right. It's basically a collaborative effort, and I think where a lot of dentists, sort of like have a bad experience with marketing companies is they don't really understand what their role is supposed to be, and the agency, to their, sort of defense, can't do everything for you, right? Now, some of them are good at kind of explaining that and say, like, look, these are your responsibilities. If you're going to sign, like, this proposal goes both ways, is in the sense of there are things we are agreeing to do for you and we're going to be responsible for, but there are things that you are definitely responsible for if you want to make this successful, right? Unfortunately, you have situations where a lot of dentists, in my opinion, they don't want to be involved in this kind of stuff. They just kind of want to sign a check, provide some credit card details, go back to the operatory, do what they love to do, right? Fixing teeth, and somebody just kind of makes it all happen. And I would always tell dentists, like, look, if anyone had that ability, they built some sort of service where, like, didn't matter who you were, who your staff were, what your competition was, they're going to come in and, you just need to provide your credit card details, pay, 1,000, 2, 3, 4, 5 a month, something like that. And they will just double your practice. I mean, ask yourself, why would they do that? Why wouldn't they just put you out of business? I would be buying every dental office there was that I get my hands on. It's like, why would I give that to you for $5,000, right? So they'll tell dentists sort of what they want to hear to get that sale, which is it's very turnkey, will drive great ROI, and it doesn't take much to poke holes in that. And you say, okay, how are you going to figure out ROI? You don't even know how much money I make. You don't know my revenue. You don't know my, what patients cost. So when you're hiring an agency, let's say, you go back, 10, 20 years, or you're speaking to a colleague and you're trying to figure out, how do I interview marketing agencies to figure out which ones know what they're talking about, which ones are, going to get me the results, and which ones are just trying to tell me what I want to hear, or which ones really do believe that all you need is a nice website and magic is going to fix everything, right? Because there are agencies where they're just inexperienced. It's not that they're trying to deceive you. They also don't get dentistry. They don't understand what it takes to get a butt in the chair, right? So how do you sift through those as a dentist? How do you figure out that the person you're talking to really is going to help you get there?
Obviously, number one, reviews. Look at reviews and ask for references. Ask for references because every company's got the case study. But I would say this is great. Are there 2 dentists or 3 dentists that I could talk to ask them how it went? And the answer should be absolutely. And remember, and just like a patient would ask, another patient, talk to a patient, say, before I go see Dr. Wank, obviously because of HIPAA, I can't refer, but certainly at work, your colleague's going to say, I see Dr. Wank, does he know what he's doing? and they're going to ask around, right? It's one thing if I say, or my assistant says, of course he knows what he's doing. He's the best. Thank you. But if you are interviewing an agency and it sounds good, that's great. But say, can you give me a couple of references? And what I do on the agency side is I'll say, yes, let me just ask a couple of our clients first if it's okay, and we'll get you references. And we do. And that is, I think that's the biggest thing, because at the end of the day, we don't want to deal with the minutia of just the minutia of going down to the level, like with your with your lawn people. I have no idea what they do for the lawn. I just know it looks green when it's supposed to, and I don't care about that minutia, right? But everyone else said they do a good job, and I look and it looks green, so that works for me. I'm not a lawn person. I have no idea what I need to know. So number one is going to be, first, the reviews look good. Number two, what do your colleagues say? Ask for references. Number three, how are we going to track? And number four, what's, and with how we're going to track, and what can we use so we can track together, in the sense that they can't have it where the way they track is in some mystery box, right? It's got to be where, so a patient can definitely go like this and look at the tooth and see if it looks good. It's a strange example, but at the end of the day, yes, I know as a dentist how much time I spend on that core buildup and how hard it is to make, every time we have to make a post space. They can't appreciate how difficult that is. But at the end of the day, they're going to judge my work by how it looks when they smile and how their bite feels. And we know that. And no matter how great my restoration is or how good a job I did determining decay versus not decay, they don't care. What they care about is, how can they tell if I did a nice job? And same thing for hiring an agency. What are we going to track? That's the number one question. And it really should be new patients. And again, you might have something different, but I would say new patients. And then what is our goal? We're going to track, because if you look at those reports, so someone's going to do an SEO audit for you. Terrific. Someone's going to do an AI audit. I'm sure that exists somewhere. Someone's going to do some type of free something for you. Great. And in that, what's going to be missing is the most important number. How many new patients are you getting, and how many are they going to get you? And they can't know that. So yes, they can do a technical audit. The building inspector can come to your office, with the clipboard and be like, okay, this is good, not a violation, this is fine, right? That's what they're doing. They're being a building inspector for your website, but they have no way to know. So they know technically if, that the exit sign is in the right place and there's nothing near the doors as a fire hazard. Great. But that doesn't tell you if people can actually walk in and out of your office properly, or you're generating revenue. So how are we going to track? And how can I, as David Wank, at 3 a.m, when I wake up nervous about my new patients, where can I go and look and see a number that I could trust? And what's it based on? What is our goal? Our goal is not just, I'm going to give you money for 3 months or 6 months, and then we're going to cross our fingers and hope. And you want to say to the agency, how will I hold you accountable? And what I say on calls is, we have to hold each other accountable. And yes, as the dentist, you have to be accountable too. There's only so much that I can do without your help, but you've got to ask, what are we going to track? They should ask you, what is your baseline? Right? And you can say, I don't know. You can say, you know what? I don't know. Do you know what? What's been done on your lawn before? What did the last guy do with your taxes? You know what? I have no idea. Here's everything I have. Take a look for me. Don't be embarrassed. That's okay. This is, like, as a dentist, I can tell you, we had 5 minutes every Friday about business. Make more money than you spend. Thank you. Have a nice day. Let's go home. So, and as long as you are tracking, you have a way yourself to say, is this working? And you say, but they should know what your baseline is of new patients. And if you don't know, how can we figure it out? Because how can we improve without knowing what our baseline is?
Yeah, I think asking those questions, trying to figure out, how are we going to determine this is successful, and just spending 5 minutes talking to that company you're going to figure out very quickly whether they really are tracking the right metrics, right? Because you're often going to get a report, ask for examples, like, what do you send your other clients, right? You guys are talking about ROI, you're going to make great ROI. How do you calculate the ROI? How do you know, can you show me what was the production of these offices before? What was it 6 months later, 12 months later? it doesn't take many questions to figure out that they're just kind of paying lip service to those terms. They're not actually tracking them, right? So you really want to spend a lot of time hashing out not what they're going to do. What are you going to change with my website? What are you going to do for SEO? It's like, even if I gave you a spiel, do you understand any of the things that I'm saying? Like, they all sound good. And it doesn't matter. Absolutely. Right. What you really want to spend a lot of time, if you're meeting with an agency, is to figure out, how do you determine results? How do you track results? How do you track revenue? Do you track patients? How do you track patients? Right. Because I'll give you a really good example here. A lot of them will, track conversions. And I say, okay, well, what does conversion mean? And the dentist says, well, I don't know. I assume that's a patient. It's like, you assume, or that's like written down somewhere. And then you find that, the website, let's say hypothetically, has, 500 visitors a month, and they have 150 conversions. And I'm thinking, that's like 30% convert. Like that's kind of nuts. Like, I don't think, your average website is going to turn maybe 1 to 3% of people who visit it into a caller.
3%.
You're turning 30%. What is 30%? Like, how can you have 30% conversion? Like, how is this conversion actually tracked, right? Or what defines a conversion? And the dentist says they're scratching their head. And I pull up the page, and I open up the contact page, and I refresh it like 20 times. And their dashboard shows 20 conversions. It's like, wow, look at that. How in the last 10 seconds that we've been talking, 20 patients came in, right? And then, so it's like, you want to dive into those questions of how do you track results? Okay, new patients. How do you track that new patient? How do you track that new patient came from your work? Right? Because it could have been a referral. It could have been somebody seeing a flyer. Like, how do we know it was a direct result of the marketing versus somebody who would have come in regardless, right? And I think if you just have a couple, like, just ask some questions around like the tracking, you're going to piece together very quickly whether somebody really knows how to track results, or is just kind of giving you the razzle dazzle about, SEO and clicks and this and that. And you're probably just going to spend, money for 6 months and hope for the best, because you're kind of just throwing money into a wishing well, right? So you need to treat it like an investment, right? If I go to my financial advisor, it's like, hey, I've invested this amount of money. How much money did I make? I'm expecting them to give me a report back in dollars, right? So I was like, you invested 10,000. It now grew to 12,000. Okay, we made 20% in the last year. Okay, perfect. That's great. If they come back to me and say, well, your 10,000 has turned into 50,000 unicorn bucks, right? That's it's like, well, how does that? What's the conversion rate to real dollars?
Last year you owned 50 mutual funds and 10 stocks. Now you own 55 mutual funds and 17 stocks. Awesome. And I added 2 ETFs and some crypto. Okay, but I got to pay for college. So, and so
how much money did I make?
Right.
Right. And so that for dentists is like, how many new patients, and can you verify, or is there, did it come as a direct result of that marketing? Now, it can get a little bit tricky here because people make decisions in multiple ways, right? It's like, people say, well, a lot of my patients are referrals. Like, great. But, if I've had people refer me to their chiropractor or whatever, everyone's got that story of like, oh, I've got John, he's amazing, you got to go to him. And then, you visit the website and it looks like it was made by somebody's nephew. And it makes me think, like, this person doesn't seem very successful, right? So, I don't know if I'm going to come in. So think about it. Like, you could have been referred to somebody, but you're still going to check the reviews. If I'm searching this place that, my friend referred me to, and I see that they have 2 out of 5 rating on Google, I'm probably not going to go there, right? Even if it was a referral. So there's many factors, like people, it's not so black and white of this person came from Google, this person was a referral. Many things play a role to some extent, but you kind of have to figure out, how are we going to cut through a lot of that noise, right? And I think the way we do it, I'm not sure how, maybe you can share how you guys do this, but I want to hear it out of the patient's mouth, right? Because, we have this sort of disconnect where when patients fill out the forms, right? So the forms on our websites, they're long. They're, you're spending 3 to 5 minutes to fill that out. Like, I'm not looking to make it easy. Like, if you're really serious about coming in, I need to know, do you have insurance? Are you in pain? What kind of pain? What happened? Like, I need to know all these details. My thought process is, if someone's actually going to get in their car and show up to an appointment, they're not going to have any issues spending 3 minutes filling out a form, right? So on that form, we ask them, okay, are you an existing patient with us? If they say no, we say, okay, well, how did you find out about us, right? And when we work, most dentists that we work with, they think most of my patients come from referrals. But when we look at the data after 6 months, it turns out that 60, 70, 80% of people said, no, I found you, I Googled you, right? And I think it's because, people remember what they want to remember, right? If somebody says, oh, I was referred to you, it feels good, it feels nice inside. It's like, you did a great job, you're famous, people are talking about you, right? 10 people could have come in saying, I just searched online, and, that kind of like goes in one ear and out the other. But personally, I like to track, what came out of that person's mouth. If they're on the phone, your staff have to ask, how did you find out about us? And if he said referral, then it's a referral. Okay. If he said, I went on Facebook, then it's Facebook. I feel like the way a lot of practices do it is it's kind of their opinion. It's not really noted down anywhere. The patient never said anything. They just assumed it was a referral, right? And they say, oh, most of our people are referrals. And we show them like 6 months of data, thousands of calls. And it's like, but look, every time someone said they're new and you ask them, they actually said that they found you online, right? And they sit there kind of shocked, right? So how do you guys track whether, where people come from?
What we do, so we're basically, the only way, in my opinion, to do it, there's two levels. The best level really is that you are having a market, and it's not for everybody. It's having a system kind of like you guys have, where everything is tied in to the practice management system, and you can look from end to end that this phone call resulted in this person coming in, resulting in this much accepted treatment and this much paid. That is certainly one way to do it, as a comprehensive overview. I mean, it can certainly be done. The way we do it, that's not the market we work with. But what we do is we will use, HIPAA compliant call tracking with CallRail, because the only way to really know for sure is to be able to tie in the names of the people with the phone calls. Now, obviously, if you're not doing that, what we do as a baseline for our clients is, number one, we're going to look at contact form requests and appointment form requests. And even if there's no other data and phone call clicks. Now, a phone call click doesn't mean the call went through. It doesn't mean it was answered. But if nothing else, there's a baseline that says how many times has that phone button clicked, how many contact requests were sent, how many appointment requests were sent. And again, those are not perfect metrics, but they are better than measuring nothing, because at least
or measuring just clicks. Yeah.
But at least
because you can go through and listen to the recordings. Like we used the CallRail for years and years. It was like, I recommend that to everybody. And it's like, it doesn't take long to pay your nephew or your niece or something. It's like babysitter money, and it's like, just listen to some calls and make sense of these. That's how we started. It was an Excel spreadsheet and CallRail recordings, and we would go through, and usually within 30 seconds of a call, I mean, you kind of piece together. If it's somebody saying, hey, it's Susan calling back, I got to cancel my appointment on Friday. It's like, okay, you can piece together that person's, yeah, exactly. You go next as an existing patient, right? If somebody answers like, hi, are you guys accepting new patients? It's like, I don't need to spend 10 minutes listening to that call. It's obviously a new patient. Track it in this column, right? And it wouldn't take all that long to, like, once a month to basically do this. We did this. And I tell every dentist, like, you don't have to pay for any special software. You just do this yourself. Like, it's not that time consuming, right? Instead of paying, hundreds of dollars for some software, you can just pay your receptionist for an extra hour of work, and she'll do this once every week, 2 weeks, something like that, and you'll get some stats, right? But I think you need to get. Every time you're looking at reports about like technical metrics like likes and clicks and shares and bounce rate, like you're not going to see the what's really going on. You got to get to how many people filled out the form. Do we know their name? Can we spend a few minutes going through the patient management system? Did they show up? Did they pay anything? It's a little bit more time consuming than how we do it, but it's doable. It's free, and at least you'll figure out if it's working or not.
And on the subject of conversions, our report is one screen, and the report shows number of organic visitors that came to your website from your area, because that should be consistent, right? If you're getting 50 a month, I just want to make sure that's your EKG. I just want to make sure that's consistent or going up and not going down. I look at where are they coming from. If you're in LA and 90% of the patients come from around LA and 10% are from Australia and 2% from Pakistan, fine. The majority, these aren't like, pinpoint metrics. These are generally, does our traffic look the same from Google with no major spikes? Yes. Generally, the majority of people coming from where our practice is? Yes. Then we look at what we said of these conversions. And with the conversions that we have found are, again, the levers are contact form requests, appointment form requests, and phone call clicks at a bare minimum. Because then if your organic numbers are the same, your population coming to the website, same area, and now all of a sudden you see, well, for the last 4 months, we've had 12 form submissions, and now we have 17. Okay. Did that tie into some marketing? Or now we see 2. Is the form broken? So these are heartbeat metrics. I know that, your iPhone will tell you here's the heartbeat of your battery, your battery health. What those conversions are doing is saying that, are these consistent? And those are conversions that will lead to new patients. The only way to get a new patient is A, forget about someone walking in. Talking about from the web is A, and forget about paid ads. A, they see you on your Google business profile and they call you. B, they go to your website and either they call you or they send you some kind of form. So given that those are the only ways that we could do it, if we see that you have not a lot of contact requests, okay, what can we do to increase the number of contact requests? If we see not a lot of, appointments. So I don't care about the number of clicks, the number of hits, the bounce rate, the time on site. None of that matters. Because if I see that you're getting 100 visits and 2 phone calls, then we have a messaging problem. If I see you're getting 100 visits and you have 90 phone calls, holy crap, that's awesome. Let's go ahead and put both levers forward to get you more traffic. And so when you're looking at these levers, so we know new patients. So what are the levers we look at are going to be, again, phone calls and form submissions. And so what can we do now? Now, if we know that we're not getting new patients and we're not doing what we want to do, okay, what lever can we push to get more phone calls? Or what level can we push to get more contact requests or appointments? Now, obviously, well, if we want to go back a step, then how do we get contact requests and phone calls? We get more traffic. Now it might matter. Now, if we said, hey, we are not getting a lot of new patients, we are not getting a lot of contact requests or phone calls. Now, we're not getting a lot of traffic. Now the organic traffic matters. But to just look at the organic traffic, right, in a nutshell, it's like looking at, your gas efficiency. If you're getting 15 miles a gallon and you're like, oh, but that's because I was in stop and start traffic for 24 hours, that makes a lot of sense. But if you're on the highway and you drove for 4 hours, you're getting 15 miles a gallon, you're probably in my kid's truck. You're probably not, right? So it's all relative. But just to say to you, we gave you more traffic, or we had 50 mutual funds and now you have 60.
Yeah,
right?
I think another disconnect for people is they don't. They're hiring the marketing company to get them patients, but they don't realize there's a bit of a handoff there. Marketing can get you the opportunity, right? So I can get you in front of somebody. It's kind of like I can help you get the interview, right? I can show you how to dress. I can tell you. I can prep with you, interview questions, right? But ultimately, when that person calls in, if they don't have a good experience on the phone, right? You might have a great website, but the moment, like I've because we record, millions of calls a year and we analyze them. And then, there's numerous practices. We've got hundreds of these recordings where they'll just say, hello. It's like, hi, is this ABC Dental? Yes, it is. It's like, right. So, you're already like not setting a very good first impression. I think where the disconnect is the dentists feel that I'm paying a marketing company, I should see my patients go up. And the dynamic they don't quite understand is when you're depending a lot on referrals, that sale is kind of already made, right? They're great. We get a ton of referrals. You should, do everything you can to get as many referrals as you can. But when you're advertising online, when you show up on Google, people don't know who you are. They might be calling you, but they might be calling 2-3 other places, right? Not because they're shopping for the cheapest price, because that's just it's a smart consumer thing to do. You don't buy the first car that shows up on Google when you search for a new SUV, right? You do a bit of research. So do they. So I think where they get stuck is if your website could work well, it get a lot of opportunities, but then when that call comes in, it's not handled well, and the patient doesn't book, and then the dentist concludes that the marketing doesn't work, and they'll hop to another marketing company and they'll say, well, that one didn't work either, and they'll hop to another one, oh, that didn't work either, and you see it on Dental Town all the time. It's like they just hate marketing companies, but when you dig into them a little bit deeper, right? And, you see that, they've had a receptionist that's been there for 20, 30 years. She's kind of a little rude on the phone. I've heard calls where, patients calling in, explaining their situation, that they're in pain, and the receptionist interrupts them and says, do you have insurance? It's like, can you imagine you call a restaurant and it's like, hey, I'm going to celebrate my wife's anniversary. We've been married for, I want to book a
American
table.
Express?
Yeah, do you have American? How are you going to be paying for this? It's like, would you come in? Right. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, how, because this, I think, ties into the responsibility of the dentist.
Because there has to be accountability up and down the row.
Yeah.
And it really depends on how you run your practice. It is, when we're building a new site, I will always tell whoever is, let's say it's the dentist who's the one driving it. I will say, go share this with the staff. Take a look at these mock-ups before we code, the designs, and show your staff. Get your staff involved, because you're nothing without your staff, obviously, and we need to really understand that I know they are not just the staff, and it's very important that everybody has buy-in, and that's more of a practice management issue and a practice philosophy, that everybody has to have buy-in. And if you have somebody on your team who does not have buy-in, that is going to ruin it for the experience for the patient. And it's like you said on the phone, we've heard calls where they say, oh, and what insurance do you have? I have this. And you hear the receptionist say,
mm-hmm.
So that is, and that's a very hard conversation to have with somebody who's been there for 20 years or who you have a relationship with forever. It's very hard to say, even, tell your assistant sometimes, you retake that bite week, because you like these people that you work with. You work with them. You don't want to. So part of what I like to do is say, we are hiring a new marketing company and I need everybody on board, because clearly we need to get whatever we have to do. And when you have your team meeting, say, listen, everyone's going to have a responsibility, and like it or not, these, it's when I tell dentists how to like break away from other companies, I say, tell them you had a CE from some guy and everyone says they know what they're doing. Blame me. And then tell them what you need to tell them. Same thing. If it's hard to talk to your staff about it and say, listen, they're recording phone calls and they're doing this and we're tracking that and we're doing this, and we're not looking for anybody's job. We're looking to get more patients. And so the company told me that I have to tell you as the and everyone has to have a job, even if they don't have one. The job of the front reception has to be as nice as you can, because you are selling whatever. You're selling gold. You have to be as nice as you can, even if the patients are mean. Assistants, you have to behave in this manner. Hygienist, you've got to do this. And me, my job is to do this. So all of us, and again, they're not coming from me. It's coming from the company. That's what they're telling us we need to do. And then if we don't do it, they're going to say to us, well, you didn't do what we asked, so we're not responsible. So in order for us to hold them accountable, this is how we have to do it. And that is one way to say to staff who are, shall I say, ingrained, that behavior needs to change. Not because listen, you could say, change your behavior. This isn't working. Here are these recordings. Not everybody has that relationship.
But they'll resent you. Yeah.
Or get into it that way. But if you say, all right, this is a new thing that we're trying. All of us have a role. And these people who I'm paying told me that we have to do this. So don't get mad at me, get mad at them. But and that's one way to kind of get through that. Or, no one has time. Listen to the calls with the staff. Go over the reviews with the staff. It takes time, but this way you just want to, I don't want to say spread the blame, spread the accountability. Because if everyone sees that everyone is accountable, even in any team, if everyone has listen, yes, you're going to have teams where one person's perfect, and it happens sometimes, it's really annoying, but generally speaking, everyone has something they can improve upon. But if you constantly see that someone else is not really getting spoken to ever, it's human nature to build resentment. And so I think that you have to have buy-in from the staff. And it's not a trick. Don't be like, oh, we're recording calls. Say, hey, listen, here's what we're doing. I really want to generate some more revenue. And here's what we're going to do. We hired XYZ company. They're going to record calls. We're going to be listening to them. They told us that what we should do is always say hello. This is such and such. You probably do it already, but they told us to say, this is such and such Family Dental. How can I help you? They said we should always answer the phone like that. I know you haven't done that ever, but do that now, because they said that's what we have to do to try and make this work. So that's one way to kind of bring that accountability. Again, it depends what kind of manager you are as an owner or as a leader, but you have to get buy-in, because if you don't want to be in a situation where you're like, wow, we had 30 calls, and because the front desk person said, yeah, like in Ghostbusters, how can we help? Or like you said, yeah, what's your insurance? That's going to be recorded, and that's a very silent way of saying, yeah, the company's going to be recording calls and reviewing them, and I want to put our best foot forward so they can't blame us. If you have to make it us versus them in that, do it. I tell our clients all the time, if we're doing consulting on the data portion of it, I'll say, tell them you need access to, Google Analytics, and say, Dr. Wank said so. Say, I don't know why. I'm just a dentist. Dr. Wank said, I need to look at my analytics and share it with him. I'm just the messenger. You can sort of put yourself in that position where,
it's like the straw man sort of strategy where you put yourself.
Let the company be the bad guy. But in order for this to succeed, they said we have to do this. So I'm just following. I'm just listening to what they're telling me. But I think that one thing that is changing slightly that we almost touched upon, that with that kind of 80-20 rule that dentists are missing, is there are certain things that websites in general are missing. And I think what we should all do, you worry about SEO, you worry about AI, check your contact form once a month, submit a contact form, submit an appointment request, make sure it goes through. Number one. Number two, if you're taking new patients, put it on your website. There are plenty of practice. You should always have something that says we welcome new patients. And if you take insurance and it's a big part of your practice, we welcome new patients. We accept XYZ insurance. I would get rid of sliders. Sliders are very, 2005. If you look at a slider, it looks cool. You don't have time to read that.
Yeah, no one clicks through those to see all the slides.
But you would have, and I also want to make sure that you have, do not have the only way to contact. So you have a phone number on the top right. It's got to be clickable, but also make it clear. We've had sites where someone clicks contact us and it's a long appointment form, and you're not going to get a response on that. Think about if you are ordering dinner and it says, order dinner, and it's asking you to fill out 50 fields, and all you want to know is if they're open on Tuesdays. It's the same thing. A patient might want to say, I'm too embarrassed to call. Do you accept MetLife? They don't want to have to fill out that entire form at an appointment because A, it takes too much time, and B, they don't want to have to make a commitment. Because now, wait, if I fill this, does that mean I'm going to make an appointment? Does that mean I'm going to get charged? Make it easy for people to get there.
Ask questions and reach out, yeah.
And now, as for chat, HIPAA aside, chat's great. Chat's all this wonderful stuff. But don't forget, someone has to man the chat. And that might upset your front desk. Because, again, you have to work it out with your desk on what's going on, but there has to be someone on the other end of it. And what I will also say in terms of using AI receptionists, be really careful. And what dentists have to think about is put yourself in that person's shoes. Well, this person didn't leave me a review. Well, how many doctors have you ever left a review for? Well, this person didn't follow me on, they don't follow us on Facebook or Instagram. Are there any is there anyone in your family within 2 generations who has ever followed one of your physicians on, social? No. So why should they do it for you? And exactly. Same thing, like a couple of months ago, it was late, we were booking a hotel, and I thought I was talking to a human, and it was an AI. Because I said, what do you have for...
I've had that happen, yeah.
He goes, yeah, we can certainly help you. And I'm like, great, and I was like, do you have anything with extra smoking where I can extra smoke in that room? And they're like, we have plenty of rooms that we can help you with. And I'm like, no, but I want to smoke extra. I'm like, and it's like, we have plenty. I'm like, that's not a human.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, and it's such a, it's such a shock, not a positive
and I felt so
way.
offended. I was like, I felt like tricked because it was someone who was AI. And I was like, what can I do to upset any normal human? Like, I'm going to, whatever in your place, I'm going to eat all the food in your, if you say something that's absurd, I'm going to eat all the food that you have in your entire hotel. And then, whatever. They're like, well, that's nice. So what can we find you? And I was so like, I don't want to say, I was so disappointed, and I was
Yes.
mad at myself for being so dumb for falling for that. Then I was offended for them putting that in front of me. And
Yeah.
so I'd be very careful about AI assistance, because it's great, except you're not Burger King. You're not, part of being a dentist and a healthcare provider is a human touch. And if you
Yes.
can't be
Yes.
bothered,
You're not a vending machine. Yeah. You can't
that's
do that
exactly right.
experience. Yeah.
Billing, crown. If you can't be bothered to have a human answer the phone, I have a problem with that. Now, listen, I also hate the dial one because our menu has always changed. Fine, you can have that. I mean, I don't like that either. I always like, hello, how can I help you? But if you're big enough and you have to have one for appointment, two for billing, three, fine. But at least have a human on the end, and don't try and trick somebody. It feels like a
Yeah.
trick. Don't try and trick
Yeah.
somebody into your AI receptionist.
Yeah.
So that's just my, that's a pet peeve of mine. And I say, if I don't want it happening to me, I don't want to do it to somebody else on the other end of the phone.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's like, think about it. You wouldn't enjoy that sort of experience, right? Why
No.
would you implement it in your
We hung
practice?
up and I found another hotel.
And a lot of them, a lot of business owners, not just dentists in general, it's like they look at it from the perspective of this would be so much better for us. They don't think about like, is this a good experience for our customers, right? Like forget
Not
us
about
for a
me,
second, right?
about the
But they
patient.
look at it from the like, look how much time we can save. Look at how much, this will be so much easier for us, but there's never a sort of thought about, would you enjoy this if you're on the receiving end? Would you prefer a human, right? Or would you prefer a machine?
Yeah,
It's like, well, obviously a human. It's like, okay, great. Then like, well, why are you making all these decisions where you're moving your practice towards the type of experience that you yourself would hate,
100%.
right? So yeah, no, I think it's like you need to be careful with tech. Like we develop a lot of this sort of tech. We do a lot of software development, but I tell people it's like they want to do business with people, right? As much as
Yes.
I can automate in your
Yes.
practice,
And
you're going to go down this rabbit hole where you're going to make a worse practice. You need people. You need like if you're not good at it, and I think part of it is like dentists are like me, very technical, introverted, very like
yeah,
we love all the detail, I don't necessarily enjoy talking to clients, right? They probably
right,
don't necessarily enjoy talking to every patient, right? But you need to
right.
hire people who do, who
Yeah.
are, they love chatting. They love like creating a nice experience for people. You know, so, my sort of like, to step back a little bit, I'm sort of curious. One thing we didn't cover is, let's say you ask those questions, you establish with your agency, this is how we're going to track success, right? We're not going to go down this rabbit hole of like AI, this and that, and
Right.
don't fall for this stuff. It's you're going to make a terrible practice that feels like a vending machine, not like a warm, welcoming kind of clinic.
Good analogy.
Um, and how long would it take? Like, how long should they stick with it, right? Because obviously, no matter how good the company is, we're going
Right.
to try to get the cost per patient down to $100 or less. We're going to try to go
Right.
from 20 patients to 50 patients. But what is real? Like, how long would it realistically take? Because some companies out there promise dentists, you're going to see results very quickly, and they like the sound of that, right? And then,
Right.
surprise, surprise, they get scammed, and then nothing really works. So, in your opinion, you've helped hundreds of dentists, dental offices with their SEO, their websites, their marketing. What is a realistic time frame to give that company a good chance to see what they can do before you pull the plug and say, okay, it hasn't worked?
Well, I think it depends, which is another great answer. Generally, I like 6 months to a year, but what
I agree with that.
you have to factor in competition. You have to
Yes.
factor in, what are you marketing? Doing SEO, the SEO is a competition game. And
Yeah.
it's something where with SEO, if you want to rank for whitening, a big mistake is that we have a single page that says we do whitening, implants, veneers, crowns, and implants, when you should be having an individual page for each of those services.
Absolutely.
There's just standard stuff, right? But if you want to rank for dental implants and you don't have an implants page, and there's 30 people who rank ahead of you for dental implants, you're going to have a much harder time than someone who ranks fourth for dental implants who want to move you up to second or first. So that is something to consider, the competition. It all has to be kind of, you have your plan and you have to put like that tint over it of competition, because that really, you have to multiply it by the competition factor, so to speak. And then you have to know how many new patients you want, and your area might not support that. If you are in an area where it's insane competition and you want to get, right now, we've established that we're getting 12 a month, and that's great. Now we want to get 24. The market might not bear that. And just because the numbers are there, right? Well, there's a population, so they should come see me, and they should.
Everybody's wealthy in this area. They should be able to afford $30,000 of treatment. It's like
right. But so you have to figure out, that's why that baseline is so important, because if you've been running an office for 10 years and you're getting, 10 to 12 per month, or even if you're on the low and getting 4 to 6 per month or 8 per month, did some marketing, you can get it up to 12, 14, 15, maybe 20 in a good month or before insurance or whatever. But, 6 months to a year, but again, you've got to know what you're looking, you've got to know what those goals are. So if you're getting 10 to 12 new patients a month, and realistically, I'd like to double that. Okay, let's see what it looks like. But you want to look at then at that, 1 month mark. I don't expect results at the 1 month mark. We're talking organic SEO, but you certainly want to look and see what you can at least measure and say, all right, well, are we getting new patients? Over the course of that, we got 1 or 2, and those could be a variation. But after 6 months or even 3 months, you should be able to look and see, well, what are the levers doing? And if you see that, all right, we got 12, and now after 4 months, well, we're not getting, we're getting a couple, then you can look back, like we said, at these precursors. Well, are we getting phone calls? Yeah, we're getting calls. Okay, so you might not be able to get all those new patients, but after 6 months or after 3 or 4 months, we're getting a little more traffic, but are we getting more phone calls? An organic campaign, are we getting contact requests, phone calls, and appointments from first-time people? Because maybe they're not converting to new patients. Maybe it's July and they're making appointments for September because everyone's taking their kids to the doctor for the preschool checkups. So that, but you've got to look and see where it's trending. And listen, after 6 months, if you see phone calls are up and and organic traffic is up, so that means people are coming to the site, people are making phone calls, but we're not getting new patients, then, well, maybe I want to also now focus on why. Are we getting the wrong? So you have to.
But having that data is useful, because if it's working, it's working. That's great. But if it's not, you have something to go back to. You can go through the calls and say, well, let's spend some time, right? And let's go through the calls together,
right,
and figure out how many new patients are calling, how are they finding us, and then sort of diagnose where there might be a bottleneck, right?
Exactly. But that comes later.
But when you don't have that, that comes later. It's like you don't have to do that step. Right. If the car works, you don't have to pop the hood and inspect everything.
But your first report that says you have now, 100. We now in September you ranked for 50 keywords. Now in October you ranked for 70. That's not progress. I mean, now it is progress, but it's not progress you take to the bank, because in the end of 6 months, if you rank now for 150 keywords and you still haven't gotten new patients, who cares? So but that's why once you start getting into those are weeds you don't really need to get into. I would say at the 3 month mark, how many more new patients? At the 3 months mark, am I getting more new phone calls? Am I getting phone calls?
Yeah.
Because if we're not getting phone calls, then full stop. Right? Or if you're not tracking new patients, we're getting more phone calls. Yes. Okay, so why aren't they converting? No. Well, hold on a minute. So that's, so number of clicks, the number of mutual funds you have, that have how they're mixing up the data, irrelevant. We posted
it's all just razzle dazzle.
We posted 3 posts a month for you, which, by the way, I think is no longer really something that should be doing. This whole idea that we're just going to throw out, we're going to charge you X amount a month and put out two blog posts every month. Don't waste your money.
And nobody even questions like,
right?
Is anyone reading those blog posts?
Nope.
Right. But we when we would analyze like a lot of our clients' marketing before they signed up with us, they would do these strategies. What were you paying for? What reports are you getting?
Right.
Clicks, likes, shares, all this sort of nonsense. What were they doing for you? And say, they would post a blog twice a month, right? And you'd open up Google Analytics and find that no one has ever gone to those blog posts. It's driven like, one visitor, the person who posted it, right?
Right.
And refresh the page to see if it loads, and that's it. No one's ever seen it. It's like, well, why are you doing this? And it's like, well, they told me that Google likes content. It's like, Google doesn't like just any kind of content. Right. They want useful, valid,
We have training. We've done webinars. I've done like training sessions on how to look at analytics. Again, it's how to look at your car to basically, check the tires and check the brake pads. This isn't how to see if that one widget is connected to that one, but just at a top level. And the company, you should be able to ask the company, can you show me what to look at? Like, that should not be offensive. Obviously asking to look at an x-ray is kind of offensive because I know you don't know what you're looking at. But to say, hey, I really want to know what's going on. What one thing can I look at that would show me how you're tracking the success? Show me an analytics, or make me a 2-minute video just to show me what I could do. Because I like to look at it because I get nervous at 3 a.m.
Educate me. Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's a very
I think
fair
that
request.
6 months to a year, and it depends for Google Ads within a month. But again, it's all about, well, we got you a lot more impressions. Yeah, because I doubled your budget. So again, just because you get a lot of impressions doesn't mean that the campaign is working. If you're starting a campaign with $1,000 a month and you're getting some success, then yeah, I'll rev it up to 2,000, 3,000. But if I'm spending $1,000, the analogy I used to give is that you own a restaurant and that you've got soup and you serve the soup, people taste the soup, and then they leave. No one stays for the entree. So people you're giving the soup to for free are not drinking the soup. So why would you pay people now to come in the door and taste the same soup? If it doesn't work when you give it away for free, why do you think paying for it is going to do that? So paying traffic to do something doesn't necessarily turn into a lead because you paid for it. And again, that has to be, that's a completely separate conversation, but that has to be measured exquisitely because you can blow through budgets very, very quickly. Astronomical budgets, and then say, what do I have for that? And really not much. So, but that's another conversation for another day.
So let's say, for those watching, most dentists that we worked with, they work with a marketing company already. They've worked with a dozen of them already, right? So more than likely, anyone watching this video probably has already worked with a company, is working with a company. What's your, let's say, number one piece of advice to figure out whether you're working with the right person? Because it surprises a lot of dentists when sometimes we review what they're doing and we tell them, like, you're putting the blame on the wrong person. That company is actually doing a really great job for you. You're kind of blaming them unnecessarily.
It happens.
And they're sitting there shocked, and it's like, no, it's your staff that's the problem. I mean, they're getting you leads. The website looks great. The SEO is actually really solid. And I get that you're not getting new patients, but I don't think the problem is there. So we don't want to just throw everyone under the bus. There's a lot of really good companies out there that I think get blamed, get thrown under the bus for no reason. It's easy to always point the finger at the company. I was doing this many patients and, I paid these guys and I didn't see an improvement. So obviously it must be them. It's like, no, it's not quite that simple, right? So what's your number one piece of advice, for, your colleagues? If you're working with a marketing company, what can you do to figure out whether, actually this company really does know what they're talking about, they know what they're doing, or you might just spend the next 6-12 months essentially getting nowhere.
Yeah, I don't want you to throw money out the window trying, but I think we touched on it before, but it has to be a culture of accountability with you and the company. In fact, now, like when we bring new clients on, I tell them, I'm like, listen, I want to hold you accountable and I want you to hold me accountable. And you hear, like, on the other end, you hear the phone drop on the other end because no one's ever said that as the agent that I have to be accountable. And it's sort of, it's very difficult as an agency when my client won't be accountable. And I don't want to work with people who are not going to be accountable. And the truth is, I can't solve every problem as an agency. I can try as hard as I can, and I can't guarantee you results. I can try as hard as I can on that lower second molar. We'll get, I can't promise you it's going to last for 100 years. I'm going to try the best I can. And if it doesn't work out, I will see how I can help you remedy or get you in the right direction to help it work for you. But anybody who is, I would think that it's like anything else. It is, you have to be a smart buyer and you have to get a vibe. And if it sounds too easy, it is too easy. And that's really, it's when you go to the car dealer and it says, I was teaching my kids, it might say, it's $300 a month with 4,000 down. I'm like, guys, you could drive a Ferrari, a $500,000 Ferrari for only $289 a month for 36 months. If you put $390,000 down, so it's, I would say that a couple of things you have to make sure of. Number one is know what you can spend. The money doesn't matter so much as what it cost you for a new patient. And I know that is a number that's hard to get. I have an article in Dental Town, we can link it maybe, that talks about how to do that. Or I'm sure you could talk to me or Nick separately and we can show you a very easy way to get a ballpark of what it doesn't have to be $126.41, but it has to be $100, just to have a clue. And once you have that number, you will be so empowered. Like think about gas. I have one card that does regular. I have one card that does like ridiculous. And before I ever go to drive my car, I'm like, I feel like paying for this gas, but it's really something, right? Because I know what it costs. And so if you have a clue of what it costs to get a new patient, then these numbers are not going to be so horrible because listen, I'm going to give you a $3,000 budget. It cost me $200 to get a new patient. So I'm expecting this. So at least, and if you ask those questions and you get pushback, walk away. And it's a hard thing to do, but what you have to say is number one, it's going to cost me about $150 a month for me to get a new patient. Can you do that for me? And they're going to look at you cross-eyed, and that's okay. Well, let me get back to you. That's okay. I've had treatment plans even after 20 years where I say to the patient, you know what? This is a big case and I need to, I have to get my next person in. I want to spend some time the next day or two looking over this, and I'll give you a call. We'll have you back and we'll talk about what this plan is. Because I can't, there are treatment plans that I can't do or I don't want to do on the spot. And, so you have to ask them what is, how are we going to measure? How are we going to hold each other accountable? Or how am I going to hold you accountable? And how, and where can I see these measurements? I think those are the keys. And from a separate issue, you want to have portability, and especially you just want to make sure that no matter what it is, that you own your website. Yeah. And that you can always move your website. And the way that I asked, and always own your domain, never let anyone buy and take your domain from you. But own your website. That's why I like WordPress. There are problems with WordPress in every system, but the idea is portability. And the answer is that if you have a handpiece, you have, your chair is set up. You don't have a handpiece that just gets burrs from Henry Schein. You can buy burrs wherever you want. And it's the same thing. If you decide that you don't like if your Schein crown cutters snap, I'm not saying they do, but if your X company, crown cutters snap, buy from another company. But you do not want to be in a position where every time you change your marketing company, you've got to knock the whole building down and rebuild it, because that puts pressure on you to stay.
Yes.
So I have a problem personally with any company that wants to always knock down my website so I don't own it to put it into theirs, because that is, listen, there may be a situation where that's necessary, because that's how it is. If you got a website that's 15 years old that looks like it was done, then maybe it's time to rebuild it. But ask why. Ask why. Because you don't need to rebuild a website just because. We have sites that we did 10 or 12 years ago, and what's happening is because WordPress code base has updated in 12 years, we have to redo those. That's a reasonable reason to do that for security. But just, hi, nice to meet you. I'm Short Hills Design. We have to redo your website. I mean, you bring your car into the body shop and they have to, total it. You have to buy a new one. No. So if someone wants to do your website, the answer's got to be why. Because
if you can't articulate the exact reasons and show some data, show some proof.
Which is why I like to do that analysis. Because if your website is working and there's just some parts that aren't working, I don't want to take a wrecking ball to it. Let's just say that you are getting traffic, you're getting calls, but not enough. It might look old. It might not be super pretty, but what if we change the call to action, buy now, instead of saying book an appointment, most websites will say, such and such dental, schedule an appointment. Well, I don't want to schedule an appointment. I'm coming from the insurance company website. I don't know who you are. I don't want to marry you right now. I just want to say, can I learn more? Can I meet the staff? So, there are certain things that you might be able to fix that might move the needle a little bit. You don't need a new website, but I would want to know why. And give me a good reason why I need it. And sometimes the answer is your website's crap, and it might not be. Patients, my best way to make patients fall out of the chair is I was doing the other day, a patient there was some very large, difficult restoration. And I said, wow, whoever did this did a really good job. And I said, I don't remember if it was me or not, but even if I didn't do this, this looks good. And it did. And and that builds trust because it's true. And patients are used to hearing, this is crap, this is garbage, the other guy's a piece of crap, did this terrible. But you know what? This is nice. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. And, if you get a company that actually looks at your website and says, you know what? That's really nice, or they did a good job there, because the tendency is to crap on everyone else's work.
Yeah, and, exactly.
If you can find an agency that will say to you, you know what? I might not have to rebuild it. It's things that you would look at, think about it on the other end. Like if you're the patient, when you're shopping for an agency, if everything is, we mandate 6 months, we mandate a year, we mandate this much per month, fine. How am I going to measure success? Fine. If it doesn't work out, can I keep my website? Well,
Yeah.
and what you can ask is you can say, if my brother, and I tell people this all the time, if you want to know if you can keep your site, you say, if my brother decides that he wants to open a hosting company next year and I want to let my brother host my website, can I move the website to him? The answer should be sure. Hope he knows what he's doing, but sure. It shouldn't be, well, it should, it's got to be.
It's all proprietary and it only works on our server. Yeah.
Now, there are companies that do it proprietary that are still good companies. That doesn't make them a bad company. But if you are not good at interviewing marketing companies and it's not a skill that you have, and not everyone has that skill, if it's not something you like to do, then working with someone who will let you keep your website, even if
at least you have options. Yeah. Then you can go somewhere else. You're not stuck.
Otherwise, if your handpiece only works with one burr vendor, then you're stuck no matter where you go. So
you're stuck in that ecosystem forever. Yeah, and some people do it very strategically just to make it hard for, their strategy for, maintaining client retention is just make it super annoying, super costly, super difficult for them to leave you, right? So, And you can pick up a lot of that just by talking to them, asking the right questions. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's going to be know what you can spend, but you have to come in with information. When you go to a car dealer and they say, well, what number do you want it to be for the month? And I said to my kids, no. It doesn't work that way, because they can adjust all sorts of levels to make you pay exactly what you want. It's just going to, but at the end of the day, the car still costs the same. So, right. It doesn't matter how we bundle the payments. So know what you can spend for a new patient. That is the most empowering thing that you will get. And again, I'm sure that I could help you or Nick could help you, separately, just as a separate thing, and give you advice how to find that out for yourself to get that number. And once you have that number, you're no longer at the mercy of a company. So know that number, know how you are measuring success. Is it new patient numbers? Is it phone calls? And how can you see, what dashboard can I see that tells the truth? Or how can I see data that doesn't have to be run through, the BAT computer where they have, where I can just see where it says, here are the calls. And number 3, look in the mirror, because yes, there are marketing companies that are bad, but there are marketing companies that are really good and they're honest, and you have to play an active role. It's kind of like my fellow dentists out there. Patients only got 22 and 27 left, and you take time. You do endo, post-core crown. You make beautiful crowns. You make a fitting lower partial, and they come back like in 6 months or a year, and there's decay around the margins. You're like, you only had 2 teeth that you had to brush. I worked so hard on this. It's a gorgeous case. All you had to do was brush 2 teeth. This should last years, and they didn't. So, am I a bad dentist, or the patient just doesn't own a toothbrush? I brush once a day, maybe. So again, you have to understand as the dentist that put the ego aside.
What role do you play there? Yeah.
Huh?
What role do you play in the success?
Put the ego aside. But yeah, they could drive you all the phone calls you want. And if you're mean, I once had someone ask me, can you help me remove reviews, which is something that is a very dangerous game. And I don't do that. Yeah. It was years ago. And he's, these 2 terrible reviews. And I said, is it true? He goes, yeah. I'm like, what do you want from me then?
Yeah.
I said, so if you're not nice, then they're not going to, so you have to look in the mirror and say, am I just giving someone money? And be realistic, be honest with yourself. Am I just giving someone money, hoping that they're just going to make new patients appear? Mm-hmm. If you are, you're not going to have success.
Yeah.
Because you have to play, or at least have a designee in your office, who at least someone who is running the show with the company, because you're never going to have success with set it and forget it.
Yeah, you're just going to end up signing up for all the companies who tell you what you want to hear, or they're to swindle you, right? They're just like, it's going to be easy, it's going to be turnkey, you don't have to do anything. It's like, again, if that was realistic, why would they give it to you? You don't think they'd partner up with some dentist and buy every office they could get their hands on 100%. If it was that simple, right? So David, how can people get in touch with you if they want their website reviewed? They want an honest opinion of how are you actually doing? What do you have? Is it worth actually rebuilding? Is the company you're working with giving you good data. Or, like you said, it's like a lot of them don't understand, like, how do I figure out what I can afford to spend?
We can help with that. And we do a lot of consulting in that regard to say that, hey, we're kind of like the car broker at some level. We're going to help you negotiate and just help you make sure that you're getting what you should be getting. And so you can go get us at shorthillsdesign.com and contact us on the website form. You can call my team. We'll put the number in the, I guess, in the video below.
Yep.
And that, I'm running around on X and on, Facebook and the other platforms. But the best thing is just head to our website and just click the contact button.
Just say hello.
And say hello. You can book a call that way with me. I see patients 4 days a week still, but I usually am available other days. And that's the story.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I think this is really helpful. It's great to hear it from somebody who's got their foot in both domains.
From the horse's mouth, huh?
Well, I've never met, we know a lot of dentists. We work with hundreds of them. I've never encountered anyone who knows like the deep technical side of SEO, web design, all that stuff, and also their profession, right? So you're definitely one of a kind. I don't know anyone else who's taken an interest in both sides. Usually, it's one or the other. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. For taking the time, and thank you for having me and for spending the time. I really appreciate it.
Fantastic.